Are you prepared for an emergency brought on by severe weather? Well, this morning's guest will make sure that you certainly are. Stay tuned. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scan FYI. I'm happy to have with us today Beth McGovern from CareOne of Wall. Good morning, Beth.
Good morning, Mary Beth. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, important topic today, being prepared for emergencies. And I think we can say we're kind of in one right now, a heat wave.
Yeah. Well, when I prepared this presentation about 6 months ago, I was not thinking we'd be in the middle of a scorcher, but I'm thankful. I love it hot. So it's good for me, but still, it's too much is too much. And
Yeah.
This is too much.
Yeah. So we have a couple of severe weather emergencies to talk about, but I think first and foremost, we're going to cover heat because we are currently in the middle of a heat wave right now.
So many people are not able to regulate their body temperature. You know, the older we get, the more irregular our temperature centers are, or we're a little bit unaware of how our body really is doing. So this is why hydration, even if we don't feel like we need to drink, we need to drink. Especially in the elderly, they have a decreased sense for thirst. So it's almost like set a clock, you know, just every hour, take a sip, take a drink, do something. And that will avoid the most common of the heat related issues, which is heat cramps. That is for, you know, your body's telling you need to drink. Right. So first thing, you know, you might feel some cramping in the legs, the stomach. This is where you would definitely see the first signs of heat cramping. And then that leads to heat exhaustion. You know, if you ignore that sign, you know, pain is an indicator. So if we ignore the first sign being cramping or pain, then we go straight to heat exhaustion. Important. Even for us, I mean, and our children especially. So at both ends of the spectrum, children to our oldest of the population.
And I know a lot of times too, people feel like they're cool, they're in a pool, but you know, it's just important to stay hydrated when you're in that pool environment or in the ocean, right? You just need to stay hydrated, right?
Absolutely, because that water is a magnet for the heat. You know, we have to remember it's almost like being under a magnifying glass, especially in a pool. And while from here down, maybe, you know, hydrated to an extent, our central system is not hydrated. So it is very important. That's a great point. People think, oh, I'm sitting on the beach, you know, I'm right near the water, I'm good, I'm not moving. All the more reason why, you know, your cells are respirating, you're putting out energy, you need to replace that energy.
Right. And if we unfortunately are ignoring all those signs and we're not tending to ourselves, that final stage is going to be heat stroke.
Yes, heat stroke is the most severe of them, and it does take a while to get to that. You do have those warning signs. However, like in the case, like you mentioned, in a pool or at the beach, you know, drinking alcoholic beverages and caffeinated beverages are dehydrative, in fact. So you're actually doing more damage than just sitting there. So keeping in mind, keeping a limit to the caffeinated beverages during this time, and also keeping a limit on the alcoholic beverages during this time, because you will definitely be using a lot of your body's stores of hydration. So heat stroke is definitely a medical emergency. That is a time when you need to call 911 for this person. They are usually and it's so weird because as with human beings, we're one way or the other. So they could be pale and they could be clammy, you know, a little bit of perspiration, very pale, clammy, or they could be red hot and sweaty. So it's hard to determine which one is which. Don't leave that to yourself. Call 911. Get this person to a cooler spot if possible. In the case of heat exhaustion, absolutely give this person small, slow sips of water. Doesn't even have to be cold. Just give them some, or Gatorade or some kind of electrolyte beverage would be great. But when it comes to heat stroke, leave it alone. That's a medical emergency. It's in many cases, these people will be semi-conscious. So you don't want to introduce anything to the body they may not be able to swallow.
Good tip to know. And in terms of our senior population, obviously we want to encourage them to stay in the cool air. If you have errands to run, you're going to do that first thing in the morning.
Absolutely. Or, you know, It's about being aware. Look at the weather a few days in advance, prepare in advance, so we had warning. We knew about this a couple days ago. So all of the heavy grocery shopping, all of those errands, cancel appointments if you have to. Make sure your car is working really well. Like you don't want to go out. If you have a doctor's appointment that you've waited 8 weeks for, I understand. Thank God for Uber. I don't think I would survive without Uber anymore, but think about these things. We really need to consider, being out of this sun, being out, being in a cool place between the hours of really 11 to like 3, 4 o'clock. And then you can move about a little bit more freely, but being very careful.
Right. That's a very good point too about your car being in good condition, because you don't want to get stuck on the side of the road on a hot day.
No, and especially now everybody assumes you have a working cell phone, but maybe you don't. I was just out over the weekend and my cell phone wasn't charged enough, and I didn't have my cord with me, and I should know better. Somebody had borrowed my cord and didn't make it back. But emergencies of all types happen at all times. And the better we plan in advance, the less anxiety, the less traumatic it could be. But yeah, carry bottles of water with you, carry, a reusable, those great stainless water holders now, to reduce that garbage that we have. I always think about all the plastic bottles. It makes me a little crazy, but, staying hydrated is a medical emergency at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so we covered the heat. So what do we have left to talk about? We have our hurricanes and our
hurricanes and our flooding, because I didn't think flooding was a real thing until recently. I was on a flooded road. Didn't think it really happened. I saw those signs, road may be flooded, and I was like, oh, that's cute. No, it really could be flooded. And 6 inches of water makes a big difference. 6 inches of running water, moving water, could knock you down.
Right.
And it knocks you down. It's dangerous. I was driving from a building to a patient in the field, and I couldn't tell. There was about 11 inches of water, and it came into the bottom of my car. Had no idea. And that was just in Farmingdale, just a regular road. You would never think, but it was just that the berms on either side were higher than the road. So things like that we don't even think. And then those beautiful locations we have here by the shore, it's between the bay and the ocean, or, the river and the ocean, and it's very possible. So, and that also gets us into trouble at hurricane time. So hurricane time, again, we're coming into it. We unfortunately are still feeling the effects of the great one. I will not say the name of that. I'm still feeling the scars of that one as an emergency room nurse at the time. So definitely having a plan, having an evacuation plan, talking about it. It seems like one of those things people, talk about and then they don't do it. Mm-hmm. I actually brought an example of, I didn't bring mine, but this is like one I have. And I do actually do this because when you have a big family like I do, this is a binder and an accordion for important folders, documents. Just be ready to go. This time of year, we don't know what's going to happen. I was completely unprepared for Sandy, completely. I had no gas in the car. I was going to work. I had enough food, but I didn't have anything with me. So I learned after that, I had flashlights in every room now with batteries, making sure they're working. That's something I didn't have. Chargers, I was charged, keep your items charged. I just blew that one myself this weekend, but, have every kind of power source that you can in advance. So for hurricanes, be prepared to be without for 3 days. And the reason why we go for 3 days is because it takes about 72 hours for local emergency response to formalize, materialize, and reach us. So 72 hours is that magic window. No one can come to help you except your neighbors for 72 hours. FEMA, Red Cross takes them 72 hours to mobilize and to help you. So the magic number is 3 days of food, 3 days of water, 7 days of medicine. So
Yeah, medicine's key.
huge, big point.
So,
But also with, in general, for emergency preparedness, even, a medical emergency of somebody, your family, somebody needs to know what you're taking. And it would be best if we had one pharmacy, but we don't always have one pharmacy because one pharmacy doesn't have this or doesn't have that. There should be a central document or a central email or text, some way that your family members can know exactly what you're taking, why you're taking it, when you take it, and how much. And it is helpful to know where you get it from and what doctor you get it from. And I know that's a lot, but it's so important. So important.
that's a great tip, where you get it from, because we're always, we're big proponents of making sure everyone has medication lists. But I think that's the one thing we don't always talk about is the source. And that's something we're going to start adding to our.
So in my phone, I iced my phone, that was a big thing. And in the notes part, I have all my medications, who prescribes them, where I get them from, why I take them, when I take them, and how much.
So Beth, you mentioned a term, iced your phone. Do you want to just tell everyone what that is?
So in my phone, I have ICE, and as an former emergency room nurse, I always would look for someone, especially an unconscious person. I would look in their phone for ICE in case of emergency. So that's your contact person, and that's everything you need to know about a person. This was a big movement like 4 or 5 years ago, and I haven't seen it since, and I would love it to happen again. Encourage people to ICE their phones. Put your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, whoever your emergency contact is, with all of their phone numbers, email addresses, every possible way that you can get in touch with this person. And also list your allergies, your medication allergies, your food allergies, whatever you need somebody to know about you in case of an emergency, in case you're unconscious. So so I iced my phone. I have everybody in my family has their phone iced, and we look for that when there is an emergency and somebody can't speak. That kind of speaks for you.
Yeah, that's a great thing for everyone to have. I know we talk about making sure they have contact information in their wallets, but obviously, phones are something that everyone else is going to look to as well for that content. Beth, what about people who have medical devices that require power? And if we're heading into a severe weather situation?
It's a great question, because at this time you can, so most of the social workers and case managers will have you listed with the power authority, JCP&L or Central Jersey and Light, whatever company you rely on your power for, should know. Give them a note from your doctor telling them what you're using, how you use it, and why you use it. Almost like the medications. It's not just enough to say, hey, I use this, but you're on a respirator at nighttime only for the purposes of, that sort of thing. So pretty much all of your local emergency personnel should know your situation. That includes the first aid and rescue team, the local police department, the local power companies. Everybody should know this person is in the house. They require oxygen, a respirator, even if you don't have any of those devices, but you have a hospital bed that requires electric. So things like that. There are so many things that people are using in the house, even as far as nebulizers. Nebulizers they're an emergency. If you have a nebulizer or a CPAP, you could go to a hospital waiting room and use your nebulizer. You could come to a place like a skilled nursing facility and use that in the lobby, provided you have pre-arrangements. So it's very important to have these things set up just in case. But definitely if you are, let's say you're in the doctor today and the doctor prescribes you a respirator or some kind of pump or an air mattress or any of these things, first thing you do, several letters, or make one letter and make several copies and deliver it to everybody around you, and even keep one copy on your refrigerator.
Right. That's, it's something probably, again, we think about these things, but we don't take the next step and actually have that plan. What will we do if we
It's all about that next step.
Yeah.
It's that one more thing, and we are so busy and we have so much to do and everybody's so busy, but it's that one little step. If we just take that one less step, we'd have so many more better, we'd have so many safer outcomes, better outcomes, because that's really what it's about. You want to get to the other side of this emergency as good as expected, or better in cases.
And I think the pandemic has given us the opportunity to experience telehealth. So one of the things that we talked about with an emergency is if you can't get access to your doctor, at least you can have a telehealth or a phone call with him or her if you're having a medical situation.
Absolutely. You don't want to necessarily forget about that appointment or cancel that, reschedule, especially if you have something going on. So thank goodness everybody has been flexible and can accommodate these things. I kind of wish it was always, but if that's one takeaway we get from this, this is a beautiful thing because they're still able to contact their medical professionals. But again, I have come across seniors that haven't seen a doctor in 18 months, 15 months. That's entirely too long for somebody on medication or with conditions to go without actually seeing hands-on a doctor.
Right.
Telehealth is great, but 2 or more visits, that third visit should be an in-person visit.
Good point. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So anything else that you think that we haven't covered regarding, and obviously our pets, something we don't think about is our pets. So in an emergency, we want to make sure we have a plan for our pets.
Absolutely. To include them in the planning, knowing if there's a shelter that will take pets. What do we do with pets if we are displaced? These are all things to consider. If we are planning to go to our family, but we didn't realize that family member is allergic or can't take the pets. So having a backup plan for them as well. Sorry about that. Thought I had the quiet place. And there are shelters, animal shelters that will take an animal, knowing what their situation is in advance. So it's planning. It's almost, we plan a vacation, we plan retirement, we plan everything. We plan our day, we plan our week. We need to plan emergencies because then we won't be so reliant on that federal, mobile task force or, Office of Emergency Management. If we take a little bit of that time and take care of ourselves. There are some things we can't obviously prepare for, but the more we can do for ourselves, the less someone has to do for us. I'm a big proponent of doing as much for yourself as you can.
Excellent. Wow. I think that's a great way to end this segment because take the time and make that plan this weekend, especially if you're going to be with family members for the holiday weekend, have some conversations with them about what your thoughts are if you had an emergency.
Absolutely. Or at the very least, ice your phone.
Yep.
At the very least, start there and all the phones in the family. Ice all the phones.
That's great. Well, Beth, thank you so much for being with us today. And CareOne has been a wonderful sponsor of SCAN. So as we would like to toast, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So again, if it's important to you, it's important to us. Thank you for being with us today. And we'll see you next week. Have a good day, Beth. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Be well, everyone.